Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I'm sorry, I used the wrong intro.
No, it's not bad. It's all
Funny,
right.
no matter how many times I keep streaming, I still seem to screw something up, and that's fine. I mean,
Well, that's all
anyways,
right.
yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. It's another interesting week, and as
Yep.
always, there's never enough information to talk about that's shaping the global economy. Of course, I'm glad to see my dear friend David here. Unfortunately, Edo is not with us again. I tried. How are you doing, Dave? Everything's
I'm
okay?
doing really good. I'm doing really good.
Just good? Not great?
Well, no, yeah, no, I'm always pretty great. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening in the wide world and in the space, and of course, my mental energy. I was digesting quite a bit. Of course, this whole thing that happened with Charlie Kirk and different people in the space. I think that regardless whether we agree or disagree with a person's opinion, the whole idea of liberty is that we have the ability to share them. And that's where I think we need to have a revolution of conscience. So that's been on my mind. But other than that, I try to keep a very positive attitude, and it's by choice. We can't choose what happens to us sometimes, but we can certainly choose how we react to it, and that's how I kind of try to keep my attitude positive. So it's good. It's good.
I mean, I understand. I made a a detailed comment on this and kind of lost my temper. I wanted to give people an overview of what was happening.
Hmm.
And I'm not kidding. Over the week, I got 3 death threats and
Yeah, I did
simply
too.
saying, you're not looking at this, you're not looking at that. And that seems to
Mhm.
be the problem. It's like when you start to
Mhm.
justify something that shouldn't have been done, like something
Yeah.
that's right for the wrong
Mhm.
reasons, right? You have
Mhm.
the other side trying to do the same thing as well. And there's just
Mhm.
so much divide and conquer mechanisms on each of the sides with the altered
Mhm.
perception. And that
Yeah.
alone creates chaos, even when you're trying to find solutions to the issue.
And I think
So,
that is the MO of the elites that are behind the scenes with all this. They want us literally at each other's throats. They don't want us exercising critical or analytical thinking. And it's not about agreement. This is not about agreement. I oftentimes will share this in coaching, but there's a big scripture I really love. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so we sharpen one another. When that happens in the real world, yes, sparks fly. It doesn't mean we're always going to agree, right? But we're focusing on a future, and we're focusing on, having this, liberty and the ability to debate without, this, because if they can't defeat the argument, there's a group out there, if they can't defeat the argument, they try to destroy the person. And I'm telling you, that for me is just, you know, if we're going to be taken out because of what we believe in, then I guess I'm going to be okay with that, because I'm not going to stop sharing what I believe. And
I
hopefully
agree.
I can do it in a way that is respectful and encourages debate. That's at least what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. I don't want to get too deep into this already. It's too early, really. But there's no doubt that people are systemically being manipulated through
Yeah,
propaganda on both sides.
on
And
both sides. Yeah,
that's really scary, right?
it is.
It could even spark civil war. And maybe that is exactly what they're doing, right? It's a
Yeah.
disease that's propagated by all these NGOs. Anyways, I
Mhm.
don't want this video to get taken
No, we're
down.
not going there.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
No,
Um,
you asked me how I was doing, and just because these are such recent events, yeah, I do digest all that, but I try to do it in a way that leads to there's got to be a positive output at the end.
of course. Yeah. Well, before we dive into today's conversation, we're going to give everyone an overview of what's happening in the markets. That way, you could still stay tuned and be up to speed on everything. If you look at the dollar right now, it's down
Yeah.
again. And that tells you
Mhm.
institutions are just positioning themselves defensively. And that's
Yeah.
why gold this morning broke another all time high. It
Yeah, up
passed
$30.
$3,700, about damn time. And
Yeah.
that is really the resistance. So it would seem like, in the grand scheme of things, that the manipulation is slowly coming to an end. Maybe not so much, but
Mhm.
you're going to see gold over $4,000 by the end of
Oh,
the
I
year.
believe that
I'm sure. Mhm.
over 5 for sure. Now, the other thing too is that these assets, anything traded against the dollar is going to appreciate. I genuinely, over time it has, and it will. And I think that, with what's this week, remember, of course, we're looking at this potential rate reduction. Should that happen, I think that you're going to see a lot of big changes.
Absolutely. And silver is holding around $42, but there is real potential of a supply shock as well. The derivatives market is going to get squeezed eventually. So that's something to keep in mind. And when you factor in inflation, you're still getting a real bargain when you're buying silver at these low prices. Into the job market
Mhm.
is weakening. Oracle and some of the big tech firms are laying people off. That's not
Mhm.
a good sign.
Right.
Borrowing is still at all-time highs. Delinquencies and defaults are also at all-time highs. So
Yeah.
that's a clear
Mhm.
signal that there's more
Yep.
stress in the system than we'd like to think.
Yep.
So ultimately, everyone's just watching the Federal Reserve right now, and including us. But we are going to see some rate cuts this year, and they're doing
Mhm.
everything to justify the necessary steps to do these rate cuts and inflict this
Yep.
economic policy, which, of
And it
course,
shows you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, please
Sorry.
carry on.
I
No.
was going to say it shows you the major disconnect between the economy and the market. I mean,
Mhm.
those stats that you just brought out there about, defaults at all-time highs, major industrial organizations, the layoffs are big. I think the hurt that is going to come to what we would deem the middle class is going to be significant, significant. But the market could literally be the polar opposite of that. And that's where gold, these
Mhm.
assets, will be that flight to safety. But what blows me away, and maybe you too, Versan, is that how few people are even aware of that reality is just mind bending.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit of financial education can really make a difference in your life. I mean, 8 years ago, I didn't know any of this, and I started diving in, and it really changed my life. It set me up for success, which is incredible. Even if things go bad, I'll be prepared. And if you look at the markets right now, we're seeing extreme greed in the markets, and that's not a good sign either, because the insiders have actually been unloading large amounts of stock while other people are using that mentality of buying the dip, not realizing that this could be a trap being set for people. And as always, I've told everyone to have a little bit of dry powder. And when I say dry powder, I'm referring to fiat currency. And it's not a bad idea, because when lower rates do come, the market could still drop further before turning bullish. And that could create a massive opportunity for those who are ready to take action. Any additional thoughts?
No, I agree on that. I agree. I think that you really have to have a solid mentality when it comes to understanding the marketplace because, this is a psychological game if there ever was one. And few people are able to truly identify the psychology of of the marketplace in a way that benefits them because we've been conditioned. We have been conditioned right from grade school onward. I mean, let's be honest, risk has been more or less educated right out of the mentality of most people. Most people, they have fear of risk rather than an excitement for it. They don't want to be the entrepreneur. They want to be the employee because, well, there's security as an employee. But you're never going to see life-changing wealth without the taking risk. You're not. But there's a way in which you can navigate that risk environment with some solid, principles in play that work out for your benefit. And I think you're right on the money. You're right over the target with what you're saying about how this market is manipulated for sure.
Yeah, it's just about being prepared.
Yep.
Um, a good strategy is going to make sure that no matter what happens, because money never disappears, it moves from one set of assets into another. It's always back and forth. There's a lot of friction. And
Hmm.
when certain markets are contracting, others are going to expand. So if you're positioned in every corner, you have not much to worry about really, and you're always going to flourish. But it's good to have dry powder just in case. I've been stacking up a lot of cash on the side. I do
Hmm.
keep it outside the banks just to be safe, because banks are systemically tied to all the risks that you see and hear about. All these
Hmm.
fancy headlines, about the dollar imploding, and it's tied to the banking system.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hope I'm not talking too fast. I have a tendency to do that.
You're
I'm
doing
good,
good.
right? Okay.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
All right. So everyone keeps asking about the new Tether USAT stablecoin. David
Mhm.
had some very interesting insights on this. I'd like to hear it first, and then I'll
Sure.
kind of give you my conclusion.
Sure. Well, what I could do, I want to share my screen if you'd be okay with doing
Sure.
that. I know you got
Absolutely.
that up there, but let me
Okay.
just see if I can't do this and find the, yeah, there it is. This is what I want. So, this is an article that literally came out yesterday, and it's a very quick 2-minute read. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there is something in here that I would like to point out. And this is really wild because we know that Tether in the past has been directly linked to the appreciation of Bitcoin. I mean, there is no doubt about it. You would watch Tether being minted out of thin air, and then you'd see the price of Bitcoin significantly increase. And we've seen that before. Now, what's interesting about this stablecoin that was just launched, look at this right here when it comes to regulatory frameworks. With Tether's USAT being aligned to the Genius Act, it comes with a certain legitimacy. You see, one of the big deals that we have pointed out, you have pointed this out many times, Versan, is that USDT could not comply with the regulations of the Genius Act. And we know that it could not comply with the MiCA regulations. Well, very, very interesting that they come out. I mean, USDT is a stable coin supposedly balanced against the US dollar. Why does Tether need a brand new stable coin? Well, because USDT cannot meet the the regulatory clarity that is now required by the Genius Act. And to me, this shows you just the dog and pony show that we have been under, because it literally says a big benefit of USAT is Tether's promise, mind you, to provide daily reports on reserves. This isn't just showboating, it's a move aimed to bolster trust, especially after USDT's past dramas. Why could they not do this for USDT? I think it shows us that the rug pull that is going to be brought upon Bitcoin, I think is going to be staggering if they were ever to bring this thing to bear. Now I'll just stop sharing that. But yeah, that is for sure. What I kind of look at it as is, hey, they're just playing the game here. That's really
Yeah.
what I believe.
I'm going to answer a comment real quick before we go
Yeah,
any
yeah,
further.
yeah.
Edo is okay. People keep asking. We're
Oh,
friends.
okay.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
he's a
he's okay.
permanent
He's
here.
just not
He's part of our
interested right now. And
he's
yeah,
taking care of his priorities. He'll be back on the show. I've spoken to him yesterday. He's okay. All right.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
I do miss him myself, but
Yeah, of
um
course.
so okay, let's see. So let's see, where is that? I want to pull this back up just to give people an image. Here we go. Just to keep it there for people to understand what we're talking about. But Tether, interestingly, I must recap, is not stable.
That's
Remember,
right.
the last few years, even 2022, it broke its peg multiple times. What did they have to do? They
Mhm,
brought in corrupt former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to testify about the risks of stablecoins. And she mentioned
mhm,
Tether's peg troubles were on the table. Okay.
mhm,
So when you start to look deeper into the whole Tether story, and I've done my best to report this, I have an article on X called the Black Swan no one wants to talk about, and
mm,
no pun intended.
mhm,
But the
yeah,
real issue with Tether isn't the marketing, okay? It's
right,
the shadow banking behavior and the questionable reserves behind the backing. So
right,
what I'm trying to say is that if you actually did audit them, I guarantee you they wouldn't be standing up the way they are today. In fact, it
no,
would completely, probably
collapse,
destroy the whole crypto ecosystem, anything tied to it. So, to your point, David, it's very good insight. This is their loophole around the Genius
mhm,
Act. You're correct. And still, if you start to look deeper into the revolving door between Tether and the US bond market and Bitcoin, right? This is going to be phase two, in my opinion, to
mhm,
that of the corruption, basically a design that is supposed to give the compliance, or at least the camouflage of compliance, to
mhm,
continue inflating Bitcoin higher. And of course,
mhm,
most people are not going to see it until it's too late.
till it's too
It's
late.
certainly a trap being set.
Yeah, and
Yep.
you've got another permanent buyer for US Treasuries,
That
which
too.
I mean, the
Mhm.
whole Genius Act, come on. The whole thing, the reason why they're behind it so much now is they know the dollar is under significant global pressure and the petrodollar is dead. So they have to put new life into it. And, Scott Bessent, time and again, has come out and said, yep, we're going to underpin the dollar with the utilization of stable coins. Well, under the Genius Act, any of these stable coins that are going to be tied to the US dollar are going to be required to hold T-bills. Well, now you got a permanent purchaser, guaranteed purchaser of your debt, don't you?
Mhm.
And it is the debt market that is the beating heart of it all. And I think the consumer is going to be left holding the bag when it's all said and done.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, history
Yeah.
repeats, and like they say
Yeah.
nowadays, rhymes differently. It's funny how people try to give these euphemisms a different feel for it. While we're on stable coins, I think it's important to remember that Ripple has recent. This was actually in 2022. They partnered with SBI. We actually
Mhm.
reported on this,
Yeah,
but
of
I
course.
think what's interesting is how it's resurfacing again. And first of all, it's not breaking news. I do have to clarify that people repackage it as breaking news,
Yeah.
but the rollout timeline is interesting.
Mm.
RLUSD is now reported to be partnering, using SBI would use RLUSD in the first quarter of 2026.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's about the timing. It's the start of something bigger. And I still believe that in due time, this may take a few years, who knows? But these things do play out little by little. It's going to further consolidate the entire ecosystem, I would say. And as you see, a slow, controlled demolition of the crypto side as well. And that all ties to real regulation because it's supposed to weed out the bad actors, right? So make no mistake, I think the crypto space right now is in a massive wealth extraction operation. And
Yeah.
I think we're still in the frenzy phase. The utility phase comes later, and that would certainly confirm the consolidation into Ripple and, of course, XRP as the
Mhm.
settlement mechanism for that value.
And SBI has been an early investor in Ripple. Let's remember that. It would not surprise me to see that they hold some of the escrow and NDAs. I would not be shocked. And being that it's one of Japan's, if not Japan's premier bank, business bank and financial giant, um, it just really shows you that. And we're seeing a lot. We hear a lot of the Japanese carry trade and how that could affect global markets and all that kind of stuff. Well, guys, you just have to connect the dots to see where this is all leading to and coming from, at least from my perspective. And just seeing, these linkages and these partnerships being, and you're right, it's just a repackaging of various similar information, but it's getting it out to a brand new audience, right? Because there's so
Right.
many people that have come into this space, and, so there is an appetite for it, this kind of information. And then you see the regurgitation of it. Well, that all affects the sentiment of the marketplace massively. And they know
Mhm.
that. And what is one of the biggest areas that they use for manipulation on any core is sentiment. Sentiment's big. And so I just think it's the fundamentals that we want to focus on. And this is a big fundamental. And it helps you to know what you really own. And the title for this session
Yeah.
for me is, do you really know what you hold? Because I don't think a lot of people do. I really don't. I think that they're looking at, oh, this has a great potential as appreciated asset, but it's more than that. It is the literal backbone of the new digital economy. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think it's important we do shift into I used for
Mhm.
my thumbnail BlackRock and JP Morgan. And I don't want people to get upset. I did that to bring people in so I can actually
Yeah.
explain some things.
Sure.
I seen a lot of articles of
Hmm.
people saying that no, BlackRock and JP Morgan aren't buying XRP. That's speculation. Give me a
Hmm.
break,
Yeah.
please. All
They got
right.
their thumbs in every pie. You
Yes.
know that they're a part of it.
Yes.
Robert Michnick, working
Yeah.
for BlackRock, came right out of Ripple, and he's the head of their. You can't make this up.
No, you can't.
He's the head of their blockchain department over there at BlackRock.
Yeah. And more importantly, I don't need a headline to come out to tell me what I can, speculate on. And I
Yeah.
think speculation is necessary and important if you're going to get ahead of the curve. And of course, you have to cross reference the research. Now, you have to also ask yourself, why the hell wouldn't BlackRock and JP Morgan, the biggest behemoths of finance, be at
Hmm.
the forefront of the best innovation in this ecosystem? Like, be
Hmm.
realistic. And
Hmm.
that's the problem, right? I would tell you right now that certainly BlackRock and JP Morgan are loading up on XRP, and that's why probably they're trying to keep it suppressed at these low prices, okay? So
Mhm.
they can accumulate more. I mean, it makes more
Yep.
sense, right?
Yep.
And they're
Mhm.
using Bitcoin and Ethereum as an ulterior motive, maybe to even bring capital into the ecosystem, regulated
Mhm.
capital, to
Mhm.
justify later on down the road funneling it into XRP. But who
Yeah,
owns the
no,
XRP,
no.
right?
Yeah, that's a
So
big point.
yeah, that's your wealth transfer in a sense too, but they're using a very nefarious mechanism to accomplish it, to justify people looking here but not over there, not giving people the honest. I'll tell you the truth, okay? These big institutions are years ahead of retail speculators and people who watch shows like this included.
Yep.
But that's why we've been reporting this, okay?
Yep. Just
Um,
check this out.
yeah.
I want to show you something here. This is kind of wild. And to your point, because a
Mm,
lot of people say, "Oh, come on, come on." Well, JP Morgan has been a known manipulator in financial markets for years. They were ordered to pay 920 million for manipulating the precious metals market back in 2020. And that was just, hey, there was, do you know how many billions upon billions they made in doing that? That's just a cost of doing business. Come on. So to think that they're not involved in this space and part of the manipulation here, to me, we don't know for a fact, but I would not be shocked to see it. How about that?
I mean, I totally agree with you. I have a friend who works at the JP Morgan branch right down the street from me, and I
Mhm.
spoke with the branch manager a few weeks ago when I was in there. And I asked him, "Hey, I saw some information about, JP Morgan allowing borrowing and lending using digital assets as collateral." And he
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, in time we're going to allow that." I do
Mhm.
certainly believe that's going to be the next milestone for the ecosystem. And it's funny because when they
Right.
made that report, you know what they said? Bitcoin and Ethereum and other digital assets. You see, the
Right.
thing is, the silence around XRP, despite the fact that it continues to
Mhm.
grow and dominate the
Yep.
financial ecosystem and even
Yep.
consolidate it,
Right.
that speaks volumes, right?
Right.
That's the scary thing. It's like you need a headline to confirm something. By the time the headline gets out there, it's too late. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yep.
So
I do. JP Morgan was well in Ripple's office, what, 14 days before the lawsuit was laid down?
that's true.
I mean, there's just
Yeah.
so
You
many.
remember that.
Yeah.
No,
How
the
can you
detail
not? And
matters.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it is just wild, wild to think. But this is the way in which we can position ourselves to strategically benefit in this space if we're able to identify, these various psychological, milestones, because the market is big time psychology with it. Well, for me, and we're looking at it like, hey, I can't be a whale, most of us can't, but I can stack my pennies, like I say, next to their dollars. I can actually play, their game, and put myself in a position where I can see the greatest level of benefit,
Yeah.
and not be a victim of how they manipulate it.
Yeah. And, to complement what you've been saying also, you have to understand if they are indeed going to allow digital assets to be used as collateral for lending,
Yeah,
then you have to have regulation. You
you do.
cannot work in an environment with banks borrowing and lending with collateral on speculative assets, right? You need
Mhm.
you need strategic regulation so it,
Mhm.
it completely avoids speculative tokens as collateral. Because if you think
Mhm.
about it, that could have
Mhm.
drastic
Oh,
effects
big
to the
time
banking
effect. Yep.
system,
Yes, for
right?
sure.
And that's why I still believe when they say other, that's where XRP comes in.
Yeah,
And
of course.
because XRP behaves like digital gold, it has the same reserve functions as physical gold. All right.
Mhm.
That's why it could be considered to be a tier one asset class as well, because it's
Mhm.
highly liquid. And that's
Yes.
exactly what they've done for physical gold. Right. So
Mhm.
if institutions are going to allow digital collateral, that the demand for reserve quality assets are going to have to follow.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
I do. I think the fact that they're going to utilize, and you've got Larry Fink and you've got Jamie Dimon, they're all talking about the tokenization of real world assets. Well, that's going to happen on the infrastructure of distributed ledger technology and primarily the XRP ledger. And so if you think that, the protocol that they're going to be utilizing to tokenize securities, we're not talking about securitization of tokens. We're talking about the tokenization of securities, and they've all talked about it. And that is the next evolution of these markets. When that comes out, you can bet your bottom dollar that they are invested in the infrastructure and the protocol that is going to be built on. Well, that's the XRP ledger.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah,
know that. It's an absolute given. And by the way, there are very, very few ecosystems that could handle that level of volume. I know Hedera Hashgraph is in that, but remember Ripple and Hedera Hashgraph, they're working hand in glove in a lot of, marketplaces around the world.
I agree. I
Yep,
mean, it's incredible, and that's
it
why this
is.
is an amazing opportunity. Just the idea of us being able to talk about this before it comes into fruition is
That is
mind-boggling. It really is.
mind-boggling. Yep,
Mhm.
it is.
I get goosebumps every now and then, and I think it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's just like,
Still,
what?
yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And for the audience, I mean, this is really a family, so I'm gonna talk to you like
Yeah.
that, but I think it's important that if you really do a little bit of due diligence and not just listen to podcasts and cross-reference, connect the dots, cross-reference the
Mhm.
research. And I'm
Yep.
going to tell you right now, and I still think I'm very early on this, and I don't think I'm wrong. Okay.
Mhm.
I think that in some way, form, or fashion, XRP will be considered to be digital gold. And this statement, besides coming from the CTO saying it functions like digital gold that can
Mhm.
teleport anywhere, it was really in 2018, somebody wrote a very detailed article about how XRP will function like gold, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very important to understand that. Also, the real milestone in this ecosystem, even with JP Morgan and BlackRock and these big institutions starting to accept digital
Mhm.
assets as collateral, when the demand materializes, and more importantly, it gives people the ability to use assets like XRP as digital collateral, you're going to
Right.
have to eliminate a lot of the, I would say, a lot of the speculative assets. I really mean
You
that.
will. And I
Yes,
think they will
broadly
fall
before it's
apart. Yeah.
adopted. Yeah, because
Mhm.
the fallout, again, could hit the banks very hard, or maybe it could
Mhm.
be in their interest to hit the banks very hard so they can further consolidate the banking system. Who knows, right?
Right. And it will help to eliminate a lot of predatory lending. Like, for instance, right now in this space, you can borrow against your assets. That's true. But it's not like a traditional type of situation where, if the bank lends you money against and uses your equities as collateral, they understand that there is fluctuation in the equity market. And if the, value of that collateral drops, usually they'll just allow the life of the loan to, kind of fill out. But in this space, look, if your assets dropped, let's say 20, 30%, the lenders will come out and they'll say, oh, okay, you got to come up with more collateral in order to secure the loan. You got, so many days to do it. And if you can't do it in that time frame, you're liquidated. Well, what if the very next week it pops back up another 40%? And so to your point, they're going to have to come up with a strategic framework where that level of volatility is not the same, because the banking system as it is right now would not and could not function under that environment.
I agree with you entirely. Let's
Mhm.
talk about supply, demand, and
Yep, go ahead. Yeah,
supply
big,
shock.
big, big. Yep, supply shock. Yeah.
Well, my stance on this has been the same from the very beginning. As
Right.
it's not theory that there will be a supply shock. It's a very real possibility. And if
Mhm.
you think about it, 100 billion XRP or even 50 billion in the retail market is really nothing when you begin to factor in the scale of global debt, currencies, trillions in value from tokenized assets, smart contracts, and everything that's eventually going to flow through the system. So back to the XRP price. I've always said that the XRP was built for infinite scalability, and
Mhm.
it's in the design. So that way its value is not actually fixed to a price ceiling, right? It's all about how much liquidity can it absorb. So its role is really about the settlement again and a global pool of liquidity. And that's what I think is going to determine how high the price can go, right?
Yeah.
So when you start to see this demand materialize again
Mhm.
in a world that is so, aggressively trying to secure liquidity,
Yeah.
when you factor in all these things, XRP will definitely have to climb to a very high price to satisfy that demand. It
Right.
really, it's all math. That's it.
It won't be
And
market capitalization. That'll have nothing to do with anything.
oh no,
It's
man.
utility. It's the utilization. Yeah.
I've always said market cap is bullshit.
It is total crap.
You know, in the beginning, maybe I thought it meant something, but when I started to analyze
Mhm.
the ecosystem and how
Yep.
highly corrupt and manipulated this thing was, and of
Mhm.
course the suppression from the SEC lawsuit and the overreach, I realized, oh my God,
Mhm.
um, you know, you can't even put a price on market cap on these things. You really couldn't.
Mhm.
You know, the true utility phase is going to determine all of this, but
I
utility
agree.
phase is going to come after the frenzy phase, and that's where we are
Mhm.
today, right? And I
Yes.
think the challenging thing is, again, when you look at the banking sector, all of this stall of regulation
Mhm.
is allowing to fuel the bubble. And the reason why is because banks are benefiting from this because it
Of course they
extracts
are.
wealth. Yeah, it's extracting wealth from people who can't tell the difference between technology with real utility and then empty speculation.
Yep. I mean, you think about it this way, in the 1970s, nobody, and this is a true state, nobody could have even imagined that one company could be valued at more than what the entirety of the New York Stock Exchange was. But that did happen. Happened with Apple. So for folks that say that, oh, well, it's impossible, it's impossible due to the market capitalization and all this kind of nonsense. I don't think they're very short-sighted in terms of the change that's coming upon us, because everything that we do is not just our monetary system that will shift with this new digital economy. It's going to be everything. It's going to be your identity, the proof of ownership of your assets. Like we said,
Exactly.
real world asset tokenization. Man, they're going to tokenize water, for pity's sake. They're going to tokenize practically everything. Information that is at our fingertips will all be tokenized. And we will live in a world where everything that is will be have fractional value.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the utility is going to just be monstrous. Now, yes, we are subject to market conditions before we get there, but I do believe eventually we will get there. Now, for me, Judy and I, we have a bag to hold and a bag to sell and all that. And I don't know if we can necessarily impose this whole idea on people that, because some people are in situations that if they saw that level of appreciation, it would change their lives. I mean, I always use the example because I experienced this, people I knew that had the ability to pay their houses off, and they're in like a 35-year mortgage. They still
Mhm.
owe on it, and saw that level of appreciation, could have saved themselves 25 years worth of payments. And, because of the volatility in the space and the manipulation, they were just holding on, watch the whole thing collapse in front of their face into a new bear market. And because the economy was also hurting at the same time that the market corrected, people lost their jobs, ended up being pushed into a situation where they were forced to sell assets just to make it, when just a few months earlier they could have paid their houses clean off. And so I think we need to be very conscientious of how, because I do believe they want to drive the bulk of people either away or out of this space one way or another. And so we have to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, right there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we talked about this. I also share this a lot on my courses with people, but
Mhm.
you have to have a multi-tier strategy,
You do.
because the problem is having a long-term projections for wealth generation in this ecosystem based on pure utility, right? We don't know when that's really going to play out. That's going to be long-term. So in the meantime, I do have a strategy where I encourage people to have a short-term portfolio so they can profit take on the liquidity injections because
Mhm.
they have to continue to finance, right?
Yeah.
Or the whole system really falls like dominoes. And the funny thing is, it's not in their interest to collapse it overnight like this. They're doing a slow,
Mhm.
controlled demolition. There's no doubt about this. So
No doubt.
being able to profit
No
take
doubt.
while they debase the currency is important. It's necessary
Mhm.
because, to your point, I've seen many people in the XRP ecosystem, and I'm talking about content creators too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to name names,
No,
but
no.
many of these people who I have personally known have simply been holding and holding and holding indefinitely,
Mhm.
and they've had to sell at these cheap prices when suppression going on, and
Yeah.
that's the problem. They were forced to sell so they can pay off their liabilities, right? Or
Mhm.
to just manage the high inflation. And you have to understand, like, it's very possible that they're really trying to shake people out.
Yeah.
And I do believe this,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah, the idea is to profit take. If they're going to continue to debase the currency anyways and collapse it,
Mhm.
slow controlled demolition, you might as
Yeah.
well enjoy a piece of the pie, right?
Mhm.
Because in crypto, you can certainly make a lot of money. Since January in SHX alone, going back and forth,
Mhm.
around $200,000 in profits, just
Mhm.
going back and forth. And I've
Mhm.
been increasing my short-term position for Velo and XDC, but they haven't moved yet. So
Mhm.
that's good.
Mhm.
It's giving me
Yeah.
opportunity to consolidate even
Accumulate.
more,
Yep. Mhm.
accumulate. That's correct. And when they start to run, that's going to make a very big difference, forcing me or I'm sorry, not forcing me, but putting me in a position where I don't have to get emotional about my long-term holdings, and I can actually buy the time I need for these things to play out in real time,
Right. Good
right?
point.
And
Good
that's how
point.
you can build long-term wealth generation. And
Yeah, being
sadly,
strategic.
yeah, I gotta pay the tax man, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still making enough money to pay the tax man and still
Mhm.
rotate that all into tier 1, which is gold, silver,
Mhm.
and now platinum.
Mhm.
So, just having, a strategy like that can really make a difference.
Mhm. For
Mhm.
sure. I think you're right on the money there because yeah, if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a game plan, you're at the whims of, the the major market makers. You're at the whims of the market and you end up most people get absolutely decimated. They get eaten alive.
Yeah.
So you're right on the money there.
David, do you have any, thoughts on SHX? I've talked to you a lot about this
Yeah,
one.
I think XHX is and right now I think what are we trending at like 2 to 3 cents or something like that? Is that right? Or
I don't even look anymore. I
let
think it's like
yeah.
2 cents.
Yeah, in some of these I don't even look either because it's not about the day-to-day price action, of course. It's always about the utility. And SHX has some, as you are showing there, some major relationship connections. And I'm just taking a look here. I'm just going to go over and just see where we are. Because of course liquidity matters, a lot of things like that. Where a person can actually get it. Some of these are not, so easily bought, but that also represents opportunity. So right now it's at 2.1 cents, but it's all-time low. If you get this, it's up 16.38 million% from April 7th of 2021 till now. I mean, that is mind blowing.
And it's
That
very
it's up.
liquid.
Yeah,
It's
and
important
very
to mention
liquid.
that. Very
Yeah,
liquid.
like right now, the markets that it trades at is like phenomenal number of markets that you can actually get, liquidity in this and all that kind of stuff. But I do believe that SHX potentially has the relationships, the networks, and the partnerships to be a major player. And for what it provides is really phenomenal. So I do. I think it has some great fundamentals. Remember, in this space, you're dealing with a lot. You're dealing with sentiment, technical, and fundamentals. Fundamentals are really the brass tacks. You can view the white paper for SHX. I mean, if you don't know about it right now, they will email. You can go to their website. They will email you the white paper, for SHX and things like that, where you can read this and find out, okay, what is its use case, why. But maybe even now, Versan, you could just talk a little bit about it and give people kind of a look behind the curtain as to what it really does.
I think it's important I clarify my mind works in a very different manner compared to a lot of people who are trying to explain and dissect this ecosystem. But ultimately, I put a post out yesterday and I want to clarify some things I said, and I stand by everything I said. And I
Mhm.
mentioned how SHX technically functions. I said it was a stable coin, but I
Okay.
must correct myself. I said
Yeah.
it's a stable coin built on Stellar. But what I'm trying to say, and I should have clarified this, is that SHX technically functions like a stable coin for Ripple. Of course, people were hoping for an opportunity for me to slip up, and of course, used it to take cherry pick what they wanted,
Mhm.
and simply not understanding the bigger picture of what I was trying to explain. and instead, just repackage a little bit of everything I was saying to discredit me. And that's okay. I've seen this over and over, and many people have been proven wrong over the years too.
Mhm.
By definition, what is a stable coin? It's a digital asset designed to maintain a stable value relative to the reference asset. When you start
Mhm.
to think about it, though, if SHX is already tokenizing dollars and it's providing the regulated rails for real world finance, then
Yeah.
essentially it's acting as a silent partner or a silent engine behind that system. That's
Mhm.
exactly why Ripple has a vested interest in Stronghold, because it
Mhm.
fills a missing piece in the payment puzzle. How? It's the bridge between stablecoins, the on and off ramps, and the liquidity pools. So that's what I was trying to say.
Right.
And of course, a lot of people naturally misinterpret my message. The same
Mm.
thing happened with the whole Charlie Kirk thing and many other things I've said, like XRP being at an infinite price. And now everybody is starting to say XRP could go higher and higher. You see, and that was years ago. So it's a bit comical from my perspective. But to those who are twisting my words and misinterpreting my message, I'm really trying my best to give people the insights to look at things from a different direction. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So, just don't really twist the words. Essentially,
Mhm.
I was saying it
Mhm.
functions like a stable coin because of its use case. All right.
Well,
My
yeah.
point, though, is that it's extremely undervalued. And that's really what my focus was on the post.
Mhm.
So, in crypto Aries, she attacked me, of course. I have this guy coming on my show. It's not a stable coin, even though they applied to be a stable coin once with IBM. Like, you know, just they cherry picking what they want to discredit somebody else.
And you
And
have to
she's been proven
wonder.
wrong so many times.
Mhm. And the motivation behind that, like, who cares? The reality is, from a community perspective, look, this information that we put out, well, we're encouraging people to go look at the research for themselves. And on top of that, I mean, they can go and listen to someone else's perspective or listen to this perspective and that type of thing. We're not out there endeavoring to talk people into it. If we could talk them into it, like I say, someone else could talk them out of it. What we're trying to do is at least put the information before them. But I don't understand this whole, like, it's just, it's like a competition for significance. It's retarded. But, when you think of
Hey, I
SHX,
didn't start it.
no, no,
I can
no. But I
promise you
mean,
that. I was
but
here years ago.
yeah, you were
But
saying this
yes,
a long,
there
long
is a
time.
lot of
We've talked about this
right,
for literally, I mean, we were talking
years.
about SHX way back in the early days there. And, when you talk about the fact that it's dealing with, the merchant financing, ACH payments, and you're dealing with credit card processing, real-time payments, it is a hand in glove type of situation to work with an infrastructure like XRP and Ripple. Come on. And Ripple is directly invested into Stronghold. So
Yeah.
that right there for me says a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all I was really trying to say. I was trying to make a point how undervalued it is, and it has a significance. Um, it's very, very challenging to find blockchain protocols that have real fundamentals. It's not easy. And in the
Mhm.
last, 5 years, 4 years, I've shared only three:
Yeah.
ASPA, Velo, and SHX.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
have fundamentals. I can promise you that.
They do.
I
Yeah.
see opportunity in this ecosystem, but I want to be
Yeah.
closest to the ones tied to the banking sector. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else seems to be complementary to that ecosystem, or that
Right.
layer one foundation, if you will.
Yep.
So I don't think it's a good idea to be too spread out, because if you're too spread out with the limited financial resources most people have,
They won't see
you don't
significant return on
capitalize.
investment. Yeah, you
Exactly.
don't
There you go.
capitalize.
So,
Yeah.
I've been concentrating in SHX, Velo, Caspa. I still have a lot of Caspa, and XDC for short-term and long-term strategy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I hear you. Like with Velo, I mean, when we were first looking at this, I mean, it was significantly under a penny. Its previous all-time high was like $2.25. Lost practically 100% of its value, almost 100%, in the bear market, which a lot of volatility in this space. Well, that presents, and the fact that it's still kept its head above water and has survived as an ecosystem that is being utilized right now. Even if you saw the thing just go to 10 or 25 cents, that is a significant return on investment buying it under a penny. And I think
Yeah.
people miss that, they miss that. And so it's like I oftentimes say, look, okay, Bitcoin goes to $250,000. All right, that's like a what, a 110% return. XRP just goes to $10. You're already at 300, 400%. It's like
Oh, I know.
it's a
Um,
no-brainer. It's a no-brainer in my
I was
mind.
gonna
That
say, to your point also, a lot of my friends are saying, Versan, like, I wish I can get in these opportunities. What should I get into now? And
yeah, right.
I'm very careful giving people advice like that. And
Sure,
it's
of
not really
course.
advice, but as a friendly reminder, when you factor in inflation with something that hasn't been determined in value yet, has
Yeah,
fundamentals, has the
yeah,
relationships and the regulatory support that we're talking about here in this
right.
ecosystem, built on Stellar, which is at the forefront of all of it, to be honest.
Mhm, mhm.
This is your next opportunity to make a lot of money. It really
Yeah,
is.
there are going to be winners and losers, and it's okay. Like, but this is where we say, okay, hey, these are our horses. This is what we're betting on. But before you go and do that, go out and research it for yourself. What's your
Yeah,
risk tolerance? You know,
yeah.
what do you
Mhm.
know, I mean, what do you believe? And come up with that, but and don't be lazy. Come on, guys. This is a big part of your lives. Invest the time and the effort. The
Well
information is available.
well, I've worked very hard alongside you and
Yeah.
Edo, and now
Yeah.
Nathan. Nathan's part
Yeah.
of our community.
Nathan.
Of course, my
Yeah.
brother as well.
Yeah.
And we've been
Mhm.
working for years to
Years.
establish trust with our supporters. And I
Right.
think that
Of
trust
course.
goes a long way.
It does.
Everything I share on this channel is
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing in my life.
Bingo.
So it's not
Yep.
I'm telling you to go do something and I'm doing something else. In fact,
Right.
that's what Mark Moss does and a lot of these Bitcoin maxis.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, they kept pushing Bitcoin and then we found out that they were buying XRP themselves
That's it.
and
Yeah.
not telling
Yeah.
people about it, right?
And not telling
So
people. Yeah. Keeping
exactly. I
them
mean,
willfully in the dark. Yeah.
that's evil in my opinion. That is corrupt and a lot of
Certainly
people are driven by
deceptive.
greed. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, to conclude this conversation in the short term, I'm very bullish.
Hmm.
But that's because central banks have no other choice but to react. Whether you cut the rates or raise them, it doesn't matter. I think they're going to lower rates, but ultimately, they're
Yeah.
going to do anything they can to justify injecting more liquidity into the system.
They have
And
to. That is the whole modus operandi for central banks. The only reason, if you take the ability of any central bank to not be able to issue one more dollar, it is game over and the house of cards collapses immediately. The Federal Reserve exists to inflate the currency. It is the debt market. We need to get this into the very forefront of our mind. Every other market depends on the debt market. The Genius Act has been, passed at this time for the very purpose of allowing for stable coins to be the new buyers of debt.
that's right.
That don't miss that. That is massive, massive, massive. And at one point, these very same people that are supporting it now big time were the very people that were trying to poke as many holes in it that they possibly could. And the change has only happened in the last 3 to 5 years. Do you not think that back then, 3 and 5 years ago, they weren't actually doing this behind the scenes? They were. And so I think that we just, I can't even imagine that this is something that people even have to consider anymore. Since Jekyll Island till now, the US dollar's lost 98% plus of its value due to
Mhm.
the inflation of the central bank. And that is going to continue till they blow the whole thing sky high. And when they do, as I like to say, the same people that lit that fire are going to be the ones that show up with the hose. Oh, we got an answer. And we
Yeah.
know what the answer is.
They clean up on the way in and they clean up on the way out.
Yep, and by the way, that is the most volatile and dangerous time. If you can learn to navigate that, you could come out so on top, you wouldn't believe it. It could be the generational wealth transfer you have been waiting for.
Yeah.
Could be, could be.
No, I totally agree with you. I think it's also important to remind everybody that there's a lot of spin on some of the headlines you see, and especially in the crypto ecosystem. But overall, I think it's important to acknowledge, you know, the real economic data,
Yep.
and the picture is still very clear,
Yeah.
despite what your beliefs are, despite how you
Yeah.
want to spin it.
That's right.
Things are gradually deteriorating. Okay, so
Yeah.
try not to sugarcoat it, but if you
No.
play smart if you play, you know, strategically, think critically for yourself, be prepared, you're going to make it out of this, and you're going to make it to the other
Yeah.
side. I can
We
promise
want you to make it. We want you to make it
I want
so
to make
bad.
it. I want to
Yep.
make it. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm sharing my
Yep.
strategy with everyone. And
Yep.
again,
Yep.
it's pretty simple, really. You know, I think it's never been easier to make money in this environment because of the,
Yep.
I would say, just the wealth of knowledge that I've gained in the last like 7, 8 years. That's it.
That's true. I would say it's easier to make it, but it's harder to keep it. And that is what I think they're trying to cheat people out of. Getting into, things that don't produce long-term wealth, not transitioning into, like you have, real hardcore real world assets that are not going to lose value no matter
Physical
what.
gold. You need physical
Physical
assets.
gold,
Just a little
silver,
bit.
land, commodities, some of these digital assets. Yes, absolutely. I believe that. Versan, 100% believe it.
Yeah. Real quick, I do want to leave everyone with something to think
Mhm,
about. One thing I've been researching is,
mhm.
the Federal Reserve, and
Yeah,
a lot of people believe that the Fed is going to collapse eventually, and naturally, central banks were always
it
designed to
will
collapse
evolve.
under the weight of their own debt.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we're eventually going to see a closer fusion, you could say, between the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department, basically a
Mhm.
merger that would
Of the
function, not
two.
just, not just coordination like we see today.
Right. Yeah.
So beneath the curtain, I would say, or what am I saying here? Behind the scenes. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
behind the scenes, yeah.
I
Mhm.
think that there is going to be some sort of merger, and it would
Yeah,
explain also why the Treasury has involvement now with stable coins, why they have an involvement with
yeah.
projects like Ripple, Fed Now. All of this is getting very little attention, but I think there's going to be a
Mhm.
merger.
Well, you're right on the money because I mean Janet Yellen when she was over there and saying, "Oh well, we're gonna." She actually came out and almost gave a guarantee to the marketplace that the Treasury would buy up the debt. Where does the Treasury get its money? Gets its money from the Federal Reserve. You're talking about a revolving door here, and of course, yeah, there's going to be a marriage there. There already is one, there, but it's going to be. I think you're right. We're going to morph into something different, but it's going to have attributes of the same.
Hmm.
There's going to be, I think, indicators of what it once was, but it's going to look so different in other aspects as well because the digital economy, people think we're in a digital economy right now because, in terms of cash, there's probably only 5 or 6% of cash for all monies on deposit, but that is not the same as a digital economy,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, also the tech that they're building, you could see this clearly from a mile away. It's being built for a multipolar world, which is very
Yeah,
interesting.
that's it.
And
Mhm.
it that can even tie into what the Russians said the other day. Remember that video we had last week,
Mhm.
where the Russians were blaming the United States for using a stable coin to back the treasury and then offload the debt to everybody that's holding the stable coin.
Yeah.
See, that's very interesting, and that is certainly going to justify again the devaluation of the dollar, and kind of leaving everyone else holding the bag. And that's why I don't think stable coins are really the solution. The real
Mhm.
answer is again the neutral reserve bridge asset, and I still believe that's XRP. Final
Yeah.
thing I'll say
Yep.
is I think in the next 2 years we're
Mhm.
going to start to see news about how stable coins have become so toxic because they're tied to the dollar or the bond, and that could be problematic too.
Can be. Yeah, I agree. I think any mechanism that we're seeing where you've been imposed to buy the debt because it's debt. And we've seen manipulation in the debt market so much it's crazy, but I think you're probably right. But I think this will evolve into something that a lot of people have talked about for centuries. I think it will evolve into that kind of an environment, a marketplace like that. And, how can a person prepare themselves mentally, financially, spiritually for a situation like that? I think that, we've talked at length about how we could go about doing that rather than bringing it up again in this channel. If I think in my last statements, I would really want to reiterate, the necessity of protecting ourselves so much. Your XRP is so valuable And there are so many people that are utilizing, all kinds of mechanisms to steal it from you, shake you out of it, on and on and on. And just be so wise not to fall for prey for those things, because Versan and I, people are using our images, our reputations. They're using everything they can to come out and pretend and to scam you. And just don't be involved in any of those. I will never personally ask you guys to send me one dime outside of a coaching program, but that's where you've reached out to me beforehand. But these guys are DMing people, they're soliciting them, they're pretending to be us, and they're robbing people blind. And
It's
just be
awful.
careful. Just be careful.
Awful. And I've done everything I can to remove
Yeah,
these
likewise.
scammers,
Yeah.
but I don't have the energy, to
Oh, they're
take
overwhelming.
care
Yeah.
of them, and at the same time research and manage everything else in my life.
Hmm.
But also I did see a comment in there I'd like to address. Can someone direct me on how to buy SHX? I promise you, as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to put the description, step-by-step descriptions in the link below, okay, in the description. And
Hmm.
you guys can follow those steps. I trust you're going to be able to accomplish this very quick. And final statement on SHX again, for those who are needing me to reiterate this. I do talk pretty fast. I'm sorry. But I think,
Yeah.
SHX is going to provide regulated dollar tokenization for practical settlements. And
Mhm.
RLUSD is going to help expand the institutional reach of liquidity. So I think both of them operate to a degree in the same ecosystem, but each of them do fulfill its distinct role, you could say. And
Yep.
I think the bigger picture is clear that a lot of this technology is complementary. Final thing I'll say on SHX is that I did tell a few of our clients on the coaching sessions that it would be listed on Uphold. And I just tweeted that yesterday. There's now a relationship between Uphold and Stronghold. So eventually it's going to get listed. The idea is to buy it before it gets listed.
Well, there is liquidity for it, but I agree with you. When it gets on the major exchanges like Uphold, Kraken, Coinbase, you'll probably see it trading at about 10 cents at that time. It's
Oh
only
my
2 cents.
God.
It's only at 2 cents now. That's my guess. I
That
mean,
would change my life overnight.
I mean, hey, it's come a long way since when we first were talking about it. I mean, it was well
Yeah.
under a penny,
Let me
so
just display it for everyone here. Why not? We're already on
yeah.
the call.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, nobody is encouraging folks to go out there and buy something that they're not they haven't done any research on themselves. We're just saying, hey, this is what we are doing.
Yeah, but I'll put the description or the title. I'm sorry. I keep losing my train of thought today, unfortunately. Okay. Any final words,
No,
David?
other than just be safe, protecting yourselves, be kind to one another, guys. I have learned so much by people that have disagreed with me. You would be amazed, and even have changed my point of view sometimes because the arguments have been so convincing. So I would say keep an open heart, and don't allow all the nonsense that they have out there, with intent to cause us to just be at each other's throats. It's insane. Don't do it. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated like that, and be safe, and be very safe.
Yeah, and you can find Velo on Uphold. I saw that comment in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, you can.
Listen,
Yeah,
if you guys need anything, you can always reach us at our website. It's a
yeah.
preferred method of contact,
Hmm.
and we're always here to help you. And please, um, if you have any questions, just let us know in the comments. All right.
Yeah,
Go
there you
support
go.
David's channel too, by the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. All
Okay,
right,
bless you
bless you.
all. Take care.